Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Regional Transit Board of Director meeting for April 12th, 2021. And with that, Clerk Brooks, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Director Budge?
Here.
Director Harris? Director Howell? Director Howell, I know you're there. Well, she was. I'll go back.
She was.
Director Hume?
Here.
Director Jennings?
I am here.
Director Kennedy?
Here.
Director Natoli?
Here.
Director Chenier?
Here.
Director Cerna?
Here.
Director Valenzuela?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Director Hume?
Still here.
Thank you. Didn't hear you the last time. And Chair Miller.
Here.
With that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. This meeting will be webcast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air on Saturday, April 17th at 1 p.m. and replayed on Sunday, April 18th at 8 p.m. on Channel 14 and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed captioned. Chair Miller?
Thanks, Cindy. Now, if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item, please. Cindy, unmute, please.
Sorry, everyone. It's consent calendar items 2.1 through 2.10. I do not have any public comments on the consent calendar.
Any comments from directors? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Hume, second.
Was that Linda with the motion?
Yes, thank you, Steve. Sorry, I should turn my thingy back on.
Okay, and second by Director Hume.
Yes.
Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Director Budge?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Aye.
Director Howell?
Yes.
Director Hume?
Aye.
Director Jennings?
Aye.
Director Kennedy?
Aye.
Director Natoli?
Aye.
Director Chenier?
Aye.
Director Cerna?
Aye.
Director Valenzuela?
Yes.
Chair Miller?
Yes.
With that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. The next item is public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda. And I have three public comments. Two. Apologize for that. The first one is from Mike Birnbaum. Following the 5:30 p.m. meeting of your board, the Yolo County Transportation District will meet at 7:00 p.m. to consider, among other agenda items, the YOLO Go Comprehensive Operational Analysis. The recommendations that staff is seeking board approval for this evening will ultimately have an impact on transit service in both downtown Sacramento and Sacramento International Airport, in addition to areas solely within their jurisdictions. The Zoom link to publicly participate is currently at http:// www.yolobus.com, in which staff will usually let people in the virtual meeting around 6:45 p.m. The Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority at http://www.capitalcorridor.org will hold a 10 a.m. board meeting on April 21st to consider, among other agenda items, the 2-year business plan update. This is the first time in over 15 or more years that this board will meet in April. Normally, the April CCJPA board meeting is canceled because all necessary business was taken care of on the third Wednesday in February. Public transit agency staff members, stakeholders, and the public can join their meeting via the Capital Corridor YouTube channel. They do allow for direct public comment during their meeting, as well as written comment in advance. Next is from Sacramento Transit Sacramento Transit Riders Union, Tammy Dremer. Dear Board of Directors and Mr. Lee, the Sacramento Transit Riders Union, SACTRU, is a community coalition of public transit riders, including neighborhood leaders, transit workers, student groups, community organizations, small business associations, and workers' rights groups. We believe access to public transportation is a civil right and that full funding for public transit is imperative in order to ensure that low-income and vulnerable communities have access to jobs, housing, healthcare, education, grocery stores, and childcare, among other needs. On behalf of the SACTRU, I am writing to inform the Board of Directors that the Marconi Arcade Light Rail Station has been without power since at least February. Our SACTRU members have expressed their ongoing concern about this problem. This is a critical connection for a bus network that requires riders to connect to light rail. Please make sure your maintenance team gets this fixed immediately. Thank you in advance for taking action to get these sorely needed repairs done. And we have a response to Ms. Dremer from Laura Ham, our Vice President of Planning and Engineering. I received a copy of your letter that included a reference to the power outage at Marconi Arcade Light Rail Station. Unfortunately, a car struck and destroyed the electrical box in the station. The construction contract for the replacement box is currently out to bid, with bids due at the end of the month. Associated equipment has also been ordered, and we are expecting the project will be complete no later than the end of June. We understand that this is longer than desirable, but unfortunately, this is a significant repair. If we have opportunities to complete the work more quickly, once the bids and equipment come in, we will do so. In the meantime, we will continue to provide temporary lighting at the station. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out. And that concludes the public comment on public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Okay, so it actually kind of sounds, I think you give that station, it kind of sounds like sort of what happened in Folsom a couple of years ago, where the crossing was out for quite some time because somebody ran into the equipment. And in that case, Carrie, if I'm correct, it did take a long time to get it repaired.
It was probably 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
That was a lot more critical equipment. I think it had to do with the overhead lines.
Right. That the case in Folsom was not just an electrical box. It was a whole bank of electrical boxes.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate the public's patience with this. We'll get it done as quickly as we can under all the constraints. Well, thank you, Cindy. If there's no other public comments, let's go with the next item.
Next item is item 7.1, contactless payment options for light rail. Before you are 2 resolutions, amending the fare structure, resolution number 2022-10-0174 to redefine payment or pay, and the second resolution temporarily authorizing an onboard single fare light rail ticket presented by Brent Berniker. I do have 3 public comments for this item.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome, Brett.
Great. Hi, Director Miller. And, good evening, Director Miller and members of the board. This next item, what I'd like to do is just give you guys a bunch of information on a partnership that we've been working on over the past 9 months. We've been working with the California Integrated Travel Project, referred to as CAL-ITP, which is a division in Caltrans. As you know, over the past few years, Caltrans has been giving us a lot of money to do our maintenance and modernization, as well as replacing some of our light rail vehicles. So we're always really appreciative of any kind of work we could do together. We were actually selected to participate in this program because of some of the successes that we've had in our past projects, as well as the exciting work that we're doing right now within transit. We were selected along with a few other transit agencies in California to participate. So in just a minute, I'd like to introduce Jillian Gillette from CAL-ITP. She's going to go through a few slides on how this new technology will make it faster and easier for riders to pay, and also make it cheaper for us to administer this kind of a program. This program is also working on solutions for the unbanked and underbanked customers to solve payment equity issues that our community is facing. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jillian. Jillian, are you there?
I am here.
Thanks.
Hello. Thank you so
Great.
much. Thank you for the introduction, Brent. And Chair Miller and Vice Chair Kennedy, if I may, I'd like to share my screen and share a few high-level slides with you. So let's see if I can get this to. Thank you.
Please do.
Let's see if I can get this to work. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. I am now going to present. Let's see if I can get it to present. There we go. Is it full screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So I'm Jillian Gillette. I'm the program manager for California Integrated Mobility at Caltrans, as Brent mentioned, including the California ITP project. So we are hoping to integrate all of the modes to make it seamless across sort of whatever mode you're taking in California, but we're starting with transit, and we're starting specifically with transit trip planning and payments. So at a high level, these are our top 4 goals to improve the transit experience in California, fundamentally to promote equity, to make it easier for transit operators to flex some purchasing power and reduce costs, and then to do our fair share to meet California climate change laws. So we found, after extensive research for several years, both a little bit of research abroad, but mostly here with benchmarking agencies, and then doing our own analysis, that there are sort of 3 fundamental challenges at a network level for transit operators and transportation providers generally in California. The first is that pretty much everybody has a mobile phone. Not quite everybody, but most people have a mobile phone, and they increasingly, that's the way they see the world. And so if you're not on the phone, then you're kind of invisible. So real-time information that you can get when you plan a trip in your car is something that we really need to see everywhere, and transit needs some help with that. The second challenge that we found is that there are really it's really difficult to pay for transit. It's hard to see, and then it's hard to pay for it once you decide that you want to take it. Regardless of whether you are a cash-paying customer or are a non-cash-paying customer, there are over 400 transit operators in the state of California. There are probably more than that. We haven't finished quite counting yet, but there's a lot of variety, and that's confusing to the customer. And then the final thing is that it's also really confusing for customers who get discounts to verify their eligibility for their discounts. The way we use the word discount is different in transit than it is in other parts of the economy. And there are a lot of different discounts, and it's really cumbersome to get your discount, and it's cumbersome for transit operators to administer those programs. So tearing off of that research, which we did again in 2018 and 19, actually we started in 2016 with some baseline research, we decided that, or our analysis shows that the sort of win-win opportunities for the state to add some value for everybody would be in helping standardized real-time data across the entire ecosystem of transit providers, introducing open loop payments, which we'll get into in a minute, and then streamlining eligibility verification. So in terms of real-time data and trip planning, which is getting everybody onto the phones, the global data standard is that is on phones is something called the General Transit Feed Specification. It gets really complicated and technical really quickly, but basically Google, Apple, and other mapping programs, Google and Apple Maps come with your phones. What Google and Apple do is they vacuum up data that's published by the transit agencies. But for Google and Apple to vacuum up the data and then present a trip to a customer, the data needs to be published accurately and reliably. And if your data is not accurate, they won't include you. So helping transit operators publish their data reliably and accurately is step one. We accomplished that last year where we've got everybody, but there's 8 really tiny agencies left in California who have not yet published their schedules. So we're helping them. We're going to keep everybody compliant this year by helping them as much as we can. And the big push this year is to then help the transit operators, and SACRT doesn't have any problem with this, publish where their vehicles are compared to what their schedule says. And that's really crucial for the customer, because if your schedule says, be at the bus stop at 4 o'clock, but then the bus doesn't show up, you irritate the customer. So you want to be able to say in real time using their phone, hey, the bus is 4 minutes late or whatever it is. So that's real time. It involves a little bit of hardware, and we're working with transit operators. But again, SACRT doesn't have any problem with this. But this is sort of an example of why a standardized experience really helps the customer. So the second initiative is rolling out and supporting the other big global standard, which is EMV. Europay, MasterCard, Visa is the global payment standards. It's the global payment standard that debit, credit, and mobile wallets rely on. So it's what you use when you pay with a debit or credit card. That's an EMV payment, when you pay for coffee. Introducing that as an open loop payment option in transit is a key focus that the state is assisting with. We want to use that to dramatically reduce the cost of digital payment by allowing the state to negotiate lower prices with the networks and the banks and all the technology providers. And then we want to take the most important step, which is to use those relationships and that system to investigate payment issuance for under and unbanked customers to make sure that they have as many options as we do. And then finally, the initiative with eligibility verification is to demonstrate, working with other state partners like the Department of Motor Vehicles, a streamlined online way to sign up for your discounts using the internet, which will allow a customer to associate their discount with their payment mechanism. And it's automatic then. Whenever they tap their card, they get their discount, and they should be able to do that from across transit operators. And related to that, that would allow us to begin to experiment with fare capping, which gets technical very quickly. But what we find is that there's a little bit of an equity problem in a lot of fare policy in California, in that we really want to give customers a discount to encourage them to use more transit. But it turns out that a lot of lower income folks or folks with cash flow issues have a hard time availing themselves of passes because they don't necessarily have all the cash to plonk down the money to buy a pass in the first place. So fare capping is something that sort of comes on the natural with bank and debit cards, and it allows you to create a rule that allows the customer to take a certain number of trips within a certain period, and then they get the benefits of a pass without having to put down the money in front. So now I'm going to see if I can stop sharing my screen to share another part of my screen. Let's see. So I have to put this screen up here on my other monitor and show you a brief movie. Let's see. Can you see a little boy with his thumb in the air?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's see if this works. I'm gonna play this movie. This is what the experience is like.
Oh, look, the point of sale terminal. First takes Visa and MasterCard. I wonder if it takes Square debit cards. It's a point of sale terminal. It takes Visa and MasterCard here on my bus. Let's see if it takes Apple Pay. Cool.
Oh, look, this point of sale terminal on my bus takes Visa and MasterCard. I wonder if they'll take my Apple Pay.
All right. And those are my slides. So
Yeah,
with that, thank you very much. I'd love to take any questions or comments.
And if I could just wrap up your thing, just so everybody knows, that speed at which she tapped is very quick. And what's so nice about this compared to our Connect card system is you don't have to push any extra buttons. It knows exactly if you're a full paying fare customer or a discount. So I think it will speed up boardings, and again, we'll be dealing with the equity issues as well. And that's all. We'd like to just turn it open for questions, or if you want to proceed on.
Great presentation. Any questions or comments for Brent or Jillian?
I just want to say this is great, and I'm really glad we're going to have all this data. So thank you for all your work on this stuff.
Yeah, this is good stuff. I remember at Capitol Corridor hearing about the timing and aligning. This will allow us, once we get the time schedules, to start aligning buses and trains and try and get them all at the same spot at the same time.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Steve, I was at that CCJPA meeting, when they made that presentation. What was that, 2.5 years ago?
It's got to be a while, yeah.
And, finally coming to fruition is very gratifying. If we really want people to use transit, we've got to make it easier. And this is a big step in the right direction. Huge. So thank you.
Well said, Director Harris. Now I have a question. Can we have two resolutions? Can we take those as one motion, or do we need two separate ones?
You can take them together.
Wait, I got two answers.
You can take them together as one motion, but I do have three public comments.
That's right. You reminded me of that earlier. If you could please read those now.
Certainly. The first one is from Mike Birnbaum. On behalf of the Sacramento Transit Riders Union, which met via Zoom back on Saturday, we wholly endorse the concept of having the ability of buying single ride tickets while on board in-service light rail vehicles. In our discussion and ultimate unanimous endorsement of this agenda item before your board tonight, the ability to buy an unreserved one-way Amtrak ticket directly from the onboard conductor at unstaffed stations without penalties or surcharges was an initiative to begin to make Amtrak great again, made sense there, and therefore our organization, led by Tammy Dremer, is in full support of that concept coming to the Sacramento Regional Transit District in a similar fashion. It will increase district revenue, increase payment options for SAC-RT customers, while simultaneously decreasing fare evasion, citation writing, court costs, and other associated court fees that come with fare evasion citations. In closing, having the ability and the option to buy single ride fare tickets with the hope of expanding the ticket options in the future will, at very least, be a moving experience for present and future generations of SAC-RT riders. With that, the Sacramento Transit Riders Union, led by Tammy Dremer, asks for your unanimous aye vote on this agenda item. The second comment is from Tammy Dremer at the Sacramento Transit Riders Union. The first paragraph of her letter describes the Sacramento Transit Riders Union, the same paragraph from the last letter, so I'll skip that part. It says, on behalf of the SAC-TRU, I am writing to extend our support for authorizing fare purchases on board light rail trains. We have always advocated to make it as easy as possible for riders to pay fares and purchase transfers in any and all forms, means of payment. We understand that at this juncture, fare payments would only be in contactless electronic payment methods. But we hope in the future this board would also consider taking cash. It is not unusual that many transit-dependent riders have lower incomes than most of the population, and many are unbanked, meaning they have literally no bank account and therefore no access to debit cards to be able to pay electronically. That being said, SACTRU believes that this pilot program will benefit many, and we hope that this program will be successful. We believe that not only will it be a convenience for RT riders, but it will also help reduce the writing of citations to riders who fail to pay before they board for whatever reason. This in turn will reduce the cost to riders who are punished with citations and the fines that go with them, and will reduce citation fee processing costs, Sacramento County court costs, and will reduce the chances that an unpaid citation leads to the rider getting a warrant issued for their arrest and ultimately breaks the transit to jail cycle of criminalizing transit use. Thank you in advance for your supporting vote on board agenda item 7.1. The third public comment is from Barbara Stanton, Ridership for the Masses. Ridership for the Masses supports item 7.1. And that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for those comments. With that, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move it, Chair.
Second.
Moved by Director Harris, seconded by Budge. Roll call, please.
Director Budge,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Howell,
Yes.
Director Hume,
Aye.
Director Jennings,
Yes.
Director Kennedy,
Aye.
Director Natoli,
Aye.
Director Chenier,
Aye.
Director Cerna,
Aye.
Director Valenzuela,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Aye.
With that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. The next item is item 7.2, annexation of the City of Elk Grove Transit Services. Before you are two resolutions. The first is conditionally approving the annexation of the City of Elk Grove Transit Services into the Sacramento Regional Transit District and the associated annexation agreements. And the second resolution is conditionally approving the administrative fee agreement and lease licensing agreement with the City of Elk Grove for transit services. And this is presented by Laura Ham. And Chair, I have two public comments for this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Miller and directors. I have just a couple of slides I'd like to share with you this evening, if that's all right. Hopefully everyone can see that. I am pleased to present to you tonight the proposed agreements related to the annexation of the City of Elk Grove Transit Services. Since our presentation last month, we have worked on a few additional details and come to amicable agreement on the final terms, which are spelled out in the staff report. Thank you to our partners at the City of Elk Grove for their efforts to finalize our annexation documents as well. We would also like to update you on the ATU terms that were approved by the board at the March 8th meeting. The majority of the Elk Grove ATU membership voted against ratifying the proposed agreement. This means that we will abide by the current contract through June 30th, 2022, without the enhancements that we had offered in the extension agreement. A new contract will be negotiated prior to the expiration of the Elk Grove agreement in June 2022. Next slide here. So staff is already beginning to prepare task assignments for the annexation, and with approval tonight, we would launch a formal transition effort. We're well seasoned now due to our prior annexations, our service agreements, and transitions, but we wanted to give you a flavor of some of the major tasks, such as transitioning assets, installing new equipment, establishing new services contracts, and updating various types of information for our passengers, including information related to the new regional paratransit service offering. Before you tonight, we have authorization to adopt 3 agreements: the annexation agreement, the license agreement for the shared use of the corporation yard facility, as well as an administrative fee agreement that will support an Elk Grove transit liaison and other related activities in future years. So unless you have any questions, staff recommends adoption of these resolutions. Thank you very much.
Does the board have any questions for Laura? Oh, I thought I was muted. Any questions? If not, I'll take the public comments.
First public comment is from Mike Birnbaum. As a community ambassador of public transportation, I rise in strong support of the annexation of the city of Elk Grove into the Sacramento Regional Transit District. This would be the final annexation in a series of recent annexations that have fairly recently and under the leadership of the Honorable Henry Lee included the city of Folsom and the city of Citrus Heights. Annexation of Elk Grove would allow for stronger competition for scarce and precious federal and state transit dollars in an environment where competition is heavily amongst regions within and outside of the state of California. Upon day 1 of the annexation, route renumbering would be absolutely necessary so that structure would be on par with the rest of the SAC-RT Forward network, and regionally based SAC-RT Go trips should be made without transferring at Cosumnes River College. Annexation would also allow for a new and successful microtransit service, as well as progression on Blue Line beyond Cosumnes River College. While we still have to Zoom this Wednesday evening before the City Council, I want to thank and congratulate staff for coming to the terms of tonight's conditional agreement. With that in mind, I will defer to board members Hume and Natoli for a motion and a second on this critically important topic, with the record reflecting that my vote be symbolically recorded as an aye vote for this board meeting. I'll see you on Zoom for the vote on Wednesday. Thank you. The second public comment is from Tammy Dremer of the Sacramento Transit Riders Union. Again, her first paragraph talks about the Transit Riders Union. Second paragraph, on behalf of the SAC-TRU, I am writing to extend our support for approving the permanent annexation of the city of Elk Grove's transit services into the Regional Transit District. Annexing the city of Elk Grove, like the city of Folsom, really helps put regional back into the Sacramento Regional Transit Agency's name. Congratulations. Thank you in advance for your supporting vote on board agenda item 7.2. And that concludes the public comments on that item.
Thank you. Questions or comments from board members?
Congratulations. That's a lot of hard work. And I know there was a lot of consternation that the residents of the city of Elk Grove went through. And I just want to assure you that I think that RT will do as good a job in this transition as they did with the takeover of the light rails, of the transit operations in Folsom. And I think you guys are going to be happy at the end of the day, Patrick.
Thank you, Director Howell. And I'd just like to add, I want to extend a gracious thank you and kudos to RT staff, particularly Laura Ham, Brent Berniger, and obviously Henry. This was not an easy negotiation because, you know, obviously change is scary sometimes, and we have to sort of look out for the unknowns and the unintended consequences. But I think we arrived at a fair and equitable deal, and most importantly, I'm looking forward to the opportunity for our paratransit riders to have a one-seat ride within and without the city of Elk Grove. And with that, I'll move the item.
I will second or enthusiastically.
I think I heard Natoli just sneak in there.
Yeah, but he wasn't enthusiastic about it.
Oh,
Oh, now listen to you.
let the record show a second by Natoli.
Chair's prerogative.
There you go.
So
Hey,
noted.
this just dawned on me. This is a very historic event for SAC-RT. If this motion passes, and I'm very excited to see it come to fruition. And yes, Pat, you're right. A lot of hard work by Laura Ham, Henry, our GM, and the staff that supports them and us. So thank you for all the hard work. If there's no other questions or comments, I'd certainly entertain. Oh, I forgot the motion. Never mind. And with that, is there any other comments before we go call for the vote? If not, would you please call the roll, Cindy?
Director Budge,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Howell,
Heck yes.
Director Hume,
No, I will not vote against this item. And so you can put me down as a yes.
so noted. Director Jennings,
An enthusiastic yes.
Director Kennedy, Director Kennedy,
Aye.
thank you. Director Natoli,
Aye.
Director Chenier,
Aye.
Director Cerna,
Aye.
Director Valenzuela,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yay.
With that, the motion carries at 100 votes. The next item is item 7.3, resolution supporting Assembly Bill 1196, Cooley, Board of Directors voting procedure, presented by Deborah Salinas.
Good evening, Chair Miller and SAC-RT Board. Tonight I bring forth this item, which if adopted, will progress regional geographic equity and bring us in line with the voting structure of our industry peers. The SAC-RT Board passed a similar resolution in support of these changes in 2017, and we are again asking to pass a resolution of support. If the board has any questions on this item that were not addressed in the report, I'll defer those to Olga Sanchez Ochoa, and that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Any questions or comments on this one?
Chair Miller, I do have one public comment on this item.
We can go ahead and take that now.
Thank you. It's from Barbara Stanton at Ridership for the Masses. Ridership for the Masses remains neutral on item 7.3, and that concludes that public comment.
Well, I'll just say, when I first joined RT as a representative for Citrus Heights, and I believe Don Natoli was the only one on the board at the time, we did have the one member, one vote. But there was also regional and non-regional agenda, and I couldn't vote on the non-regional agenda. It was very confusing. And I think that's where we came up with the weighted voting with members who were not annexed in, the contract cities and such. And there was a bonus for being a full-fledged member of RT. At least that's how I recall it being. And so with this final annexation, I don't think we have the need for the weighted voting. I would support this resolution.
Yes, Chair, if I may. Sorry.
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Chair. I think also just when it comes to public engagement, as someone who used to try to engage RT on decisions, it was really hard to understand when you were at a majority and how to lobby and who you needed to target if you were trying to influence a decision. And I really hope this will also just make it easier for the public to advocate for changes that they want at the board as well. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, there was some controversial votes. I had no idea, even when they were tallied, what had just happened. So I do think it simplifies it. Any other comments? If that, please, I'd entertain a motion.
Chair, this is Valenzuela. I'll move.
I'll second, Chenier.
Motion by Valenzuela, second by Chenier. Cindy, please call the roll.
Director Budge,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Howell,
Yes.
Director Hume,
Aye.
Director Jennings,
Aye.
Director Kennedy,
Aye.
Director Natoli,
Aye.
Director Chenier,
Aye.
Director Cerna,
Aye.
Director Valenzuela,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Aye.
With that, the motion carries at 100 votes. And the next item is the General Manager's Report, item 8.1. Mr. Lee?
Oh, microphone. Welcome.
You're
Henry.
muted, Henry.
Sorry about that. Let me go back to, okay. Hey, good evening, Chairman, board members, and the public. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to acknowledge a couple of items that board just approved. First, Elk Grove annexation. Almost 2 decades ago, the city of Elk Grove, along with multiple other cities and counties, decided to leave Sacramento and form their own transit service. In 2019, Sacramento and the city of Elk Grove reached an agreement to operate the Elk Grove transit service under contract, beginning the stages of re-annexation with more trust among two partners. Today's reunion is a culmination of hard work and recognition that we are stronger united. We have spoken about the benefits of annexation in the past, but I would just like to remind us of very few of them. The region will no longer compete with itself for state and federal transit grant funding. And like Director Hume said, ADA paratransit riders will be able to travel regionally without having to transfer its city's borders. The agreement will lead to better route integration and regional planning, benefiting social justice and leading to more equitable service. And certainly the district will realize efficiencies through economies of scale. And there are just some of the benefits, and we are so proud of this agreement. Like Chair Miller said, this is truly a historical moment for this region's mobility improvement. And it comes on the heels of the annexation agreements we reached with the city of Folsom, Central Heights for transit operations, and the ADA service transfer back to Sacramento from Paratransit Inc. I just want to thank Elk Grove city staff and the city manager, council member or Director Pat Hume, council member Stephanie Nguyen, Mayor Bobby Allen, and other council members of the city of Elk Grove, and the Sacramento team for working through the countless details of which agreement, and we look forward to council's ratification later this week. Now, I would also like to acknowledge the new contract the board just approved with the IBEW collective bargaining unit. This new 3-year contract sets more equitable and fair terms for wages, hours, and working conditions for bargaining unit employees. The agreement will go through March 2024. I would like to sincerely thank IBEW business rep, Ms. Gina Norton and her team, and the Sacramento's labor relations and the bargaining team for this successful negotiation. Also, Sacramento hosted a very productive ambassadors meeting last Thursday. I'd like to thank Sacramento's ambassadors, Mike Bonbon, Hannah O'Connell, Russell Rollins, Barbara Staten, and Jeff Tartaglia for sharing some great ideas with us. Just to be clear, I mentioned ambassadors' names by alphabetical order, so they get the equal share of our thanks. Certainly, I think the region will greatly appreciate and thank to our board for looking the best interest of this region and how to be more equitable, for the surveys by approving the, resolution of changing Sac-Artist's voting structure from rigged to flat, one for one. This takes lots of, really strategic thinking, and all board members are looking for the best interest of this region, and this is a great progress. Then I would like to share some major projects updates, just a couple today. Over the last few years, we have been extremely busy tackling new projects, progressing major initiatives, and growing operations. Because we have so many major projects going on simultaneously, today I just want to provide a status update for two. So by regularly updating this, we will keep the public informed and hold ourselves accountable for deadlines and project execution. Two projects. One is Water IAT light rail station improvements. Second one is Sac-Artist light rail modernization program. On Thursday, this Thursday, the SACOG board is expected to adopt a staff recommendation for the allocation of federal and state funding from the regional funding program. SACOG received about 113 applications to the program that collectively request over $460 million, with only nearly about $200 million available. Certainly, there are tremendous infrastructure needs in the six-county region, and Sac-Artist is appreciative of the more than $33 million in funding recommended for Sac-Artist. Our deep gratitude, thanks goes to SACOG board and management team led by James Correns. Certainly, great thanks to Director Jennings, Kennedy, and Chenier for providing extraordinary leadership in SACOG's board in this process. Out of $33 million receiving, $22 million of the funding will go to our light rail modernization project. That will leverage nearly 4 times that amount in state funding that has been already awarded to Sac-Artist. This funding very much provides us with the remaining funds to exercise our option to purchase 16 additional low-floor light rail vehicles, in addition to original 20 board approved last year, and the funding we received from state and from SACOG last year. Because state grant programs are focused on our climate goals, Sac-Artist is best positioned of any jurisdictions to secure outside funding, stretching the funding recommendation by at least 3-fold. What is even more exciting is these funds will reverberate throughout Sacramento's economy. The new vehicles are being built here in South Sacramento by Siemens Mobility. In fact, Siemens built that facility over 30 years ago to build Sac-Artist's first round of light rail vehicles for the starter line. The low-floor design is critical as we fight for social equity, inclusion, and justice. The vehicles are safer, more accessible, and more reliable. Passengers use mobility devices such as wheelchairs. We no longer have to board the front car via wrist boarding platform, but can easily board any car, providing more capacity. Siemens has been in production for the original 20 low-floor vehicles we ordered last year, We expect the first vehicle to be delivered in August of 2022, next year. Of course, we are also renovating light rail stations to accommodate the new trains and improve the riders' experience. We have completed about 100% design for the station conversions and intend to release the project for bid next month. Our goal is to have construction start by August this year and the conversions complete by the end of next year. So just in line with our new vehicles moving in. The last component of the light rail modernization project is additional side tracks on the Gold Line to allow for 15-minute service frequency to the Folsom stations. We expect to have the project 100% designed by the end of August, with construction starting before the end of the year. Then the next project, what I-80 transit station improvements, is recommended for $1.5 million from SACAC's funding round. A couple of years ago, SACAC worked with the community, or SACRT worked with the community along with SACAC to reimagine the What I-80 station, which is our flagship station. This funding, along with state funding, will allow us to move forward with the board-adopted plan of improvements for the station. We hope to have the project fully designed by the end of this year. However, in a quick timeline, we have been moving forward on the What I-80 elevator modernization project. The east elevator was completed last week and is operational now. This really warrants a big celebration because it's so important, the elevators in the station for our customers. The west elevator is being installed this week, and I know this is a welcome sight for many of our riders from northeast corridor of this six-county region, and will save the agency from having to operate across the bus bridges. We spend enormous of effort and time and money on the bus bridges all year round. At the next board meeting, I will be sure to return with additional project updates. And finally, to conclude my remarks, I would like to share a very short video, probably just a couple seconds. And I'm hoping this will put a smile on your face, because this truly is lasting better, like a child enthusiasm and excitement when they say a light rail train. Deborah, Adam, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's awesome.
It did put a smile on my face. Well, your whole presentation put a smile on my face. So thank you, Henry. Any questions or comments?
Even Bob liked it.
All right. Next item, please.
Next item is reports, ideas, and questions from directors, if any.
I'm not hearing any.
I just had a quick question, if that's okay, about when we resume. I know we're chatting briefly before the meeting about when we might resume in-person meetings, or I'm just curious if Henry or anybody has any timelines on that.
I think the chair, I talked to the chair a couple times, and the chair, can you actually just refer back to you?
Well, logistically, it's a little tough. I'm guessing by June, the whole state's going to open up. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of money, for a couple meetings, rushing out and getting a couple meetings ready where we have to put up barriers, and I don't, limiting that room. the small boardroom to 25% would be difficult. So I'm hopeful, and not to put Henry on the spot, but I'd like to toss it back and let him and his staff use the best judgment of getting us in there. I don't know about the rest of you. I'll have my second shot next week and feel pretty comfortable, getting back into meetings. If the board chooses, we could put this on the agenda to actually have a discussion about it. Otherwise, I was just going to leave it up to staff to make the transition to opening the boardroom up again.
So, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, when we talked about this, as I was saying earlier, when we talked about this for Rancho Cordova, it's really important that we allow the staff to really kind of decide when they're ready to deal with it, because as you said, not only do you not want to have to buy a lot of equipment that may be only used for a couple of months, but on the other hand, you have a lot of members of the public who want to attend also. And the question is, in what way do we make them safe? Regional Transit is blessed with an extremely small boardroom. And it's difficult to crowd the number of people and staff, number of public and staff who normally participate into that room in the best of circumstances. So when you have to limit everybody to sitting 6 feet from each other or whatnot, then that means you really need an auxiliary room where you could set up some sort of audio-visual ability for them to either tune in or participate or whatever. So the thing does become a fairly complicated question. There's a lot of us, including Regional Transit, that are going into budget discussions in these next couple of months. And we decided for Rancho Cordova that we would simply defer the whole thing until June. And as it turns out, given, as you said, the fact that the state is considering reopening, that really seems like the ideal time to bring it up for a significant discussion.
Yeah, and I think if we go any further, we would need to agendize this. I don't want to have a discussion about an item not on the agenda. So we could always talk about it at the next meeting. But I think things are going to start happening. Maybe a little soon to target. But again, I would leave it in the hands of our staff. If we could easily set up an auxiliary room. So I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just in addition to what Director Budge offered, because I have pretty frequent contact and conversation with Dr. Kasiri, our public health officer. Even though the most of the capacity restrictions are going to be lifted on June 15th per the state, one of the things that we're concerned about and we're trying to think through as it affects our Board of Supervisors meetings and our chambers and how we manage that is that we need to be prepared for members of the public that may not feel comfortable wearing masks when they're still required and social distancing when it's still required. And so there's probably some thinking that needs to occur in terms of how best to be prepared for that, because some of that can get pretty ugly pretty fast.
Yeah, my position is I would rather, if I'm going to make a mistake, I'd rather do it on the side of safety than rush things. So
of course, I appreciate this, Chair. I was just curious about it.
Yeah,
People ask.
I'm done with WebEx, Zoom meetings, whatever else you call them. I'd like to open things up, and it's like a magnet. The closer you get, the harder it pulls.
No, and I feel bad for Katie because she just got elected in the middle of this whole thing and has never actually attended a real meeting of any of this. But in Folsom, we're really pretty lucky because our chamber is about the same size as the County Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
But we are in a little bit of a different situation because we have a different staff setup so that we are able to keep even the council members and our clerk at least 6 feet away from each other, and we just limit the number of people allow into the council chambers. But it worked well with the call-in and the limited number of people that we have to have in the room at one time. But the RT boardroom is very, very small. Not really any place else in that building to set up what else you'd need to set up to have people, members of the public, participating in any significant way. And a lot of people attend those meetings. So short of RT buying another building or being somewhere else, and there's already a lot of competing meetings that take place at the Board of Supervisors Chamber. So I'll see it.
Okay, well, Henry, keep us updated. And Phil, your help's appreciated too with the county health director. Much appreciated.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the organization?
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
We are adjourned.